Hello, everyone. I'm James from the Bitcoin Startup Lab, and we are the first pre-accelerator that focuses on Web3 Bitcoin startups. We help founders build investment-worthy startups on Bitcoin. Today, I'm the co-host of the series A Founder's Journey into Bitcoin. Today, we have a special program where we've invited our CEO and founder of the Bitcoin Startup Lab and the Bitcoin Olympics Hackathon, Albert Liang. Today's topic is to help builders do a self-assessment to see if they have the highly effective habits to take the plunge and create a startup. On that note, Albert, can you share with us your experience of training hundreds of startup founders to build investment-worthy startups? And what are the patterns that you have seen in the ones that build great startups?
Uh, Thank you, James, for that kind introduction. Yes, I'd be happy to share some of the patterns I've seen, and I've been fortunate enough to not only have the opportunity and the honor to train many successful startups, but I've also experienced the startup cycle many times myself, failed and succeeded, as well as work with hundreds of mentors as well. Also on the quest to create the best program, we also took a deep dive and try to understand as best as possible, like the great entrepreneurs of our time, right? From U.S. to China, right? You have the founder of Tencent, Pony Ma. You have Steve Jobs from Apple, Bill Gates from Microsoft, Elon Musk from Tesla, etc. What did they do? Um, um, that was the same. Are there any patterns, no matter what culture they're from, no matter what time era they're from, no matter what industry they're from? Are there patterns? And after seeing hundreds, if not thousands, of data points, it seems that there are some very concrete similarities that are almost as strong as a law of gravity. For example, yeah. So, for example, we all know that if you want to, well, if you don't know, let's share a little piece of what it means to create a startup, right? Basically, a startup that survives past its infancy, you'll hear time and time again when you interview founders who have turned a startup into a sustainable business, they'll say, in the beginning, there's a group of users that pulled me into the startup. Okay, they found a group of users that pulled them into. They didn't have to convince them, right? Like these users, they had such a big demand, or some people say pain, or they had such a big need that they are almost hounding you to say, hurry up and develop a better product because our existing solution sucks, right? And then, right, and then it's up to you and the team to develop something that becomes best in class. So those users will say, wow, this is a better product, and therefore I'm going to change my habits. I want to drop my habit of using the best existing solution and then change my habit to use the new best existing solution, right? Now, if that sort of sounds mysterious to you, it's okay, because that's what the Bitcoin Startup Lab helps you walk through. That's what our bootcamp trains you to do. It's hands-on. So you will develop the tools and mechanics and mindset and the environment and the resources and the people you need to help you succeed. So let's not talk about that, because that can be trained. What is harder to train, or I should say what takes more time to train, are certain habits that we've seen in people that come into the bootcamp and they succeed almost immediately, right? In a matter of a few months, they are transformed. Whereas other people, they come through the bootcamp, they may not even get past the second week, they give up, right? It takes longer. I'm not saying they're going to be a failure in a startup their whole life, but at this point in time, they're not ready. So today, going back to your point, James, we're talking about how to do a self-assessment. Like, am I ready right now? Right? I always say we're never completely ready, but if after you hear the several points that I'm talking about and you feel like, hey, you know what, I'm maybe like 60, 70% there on most of these points, then you're probably already ready enough. Because guess what? We're never completely ready to do anything entrepreneur, because by definition, when you're doing a startup, you're creating something that has not existed before, right? You're blazing that path where there was no path before. So by definition, you can never be ready for that, right? But there are certain things, there are certain habits that you could carry into the uncharted land, that you could carry into the unknown, that will allow you to navigate it successfully. And if you don't have enough of those habits, then yes, you could go into that same uncharted land, and then you could get lost and could fail, and then you have to go back to whatever you're doing, or maybe you get wounded emotionally, right? So hopefully today, this self-assessment can help a lot of people. So I would have to say the first trait, or the first habit, is resilience. And I'm not going to get into why or how people develop it this time. I mean, we could talk about how to develop this, but let me define what it means first. This way you can assess if you have enough resilience to do a startup. Right. So when I say resilience, is a combination of determination, like you just like, I'm never going to give up attitude, combined with mental flexibility, right? Because if you have one or the other, it's very bad for entrepreneur. Entrepreneur needs to have both combined in the right amounts, right? If you're too determined, that means you're too stubborn, you're set in ways, you're not going to succeed, because the startup is constantly morphing, constantly changing. And that's where the mental flexibility comes in. But if you're all mental flexibility and no determination, you'll find out that you'll try something here today, you'll try something there tomorrow, you never become an expert at what you're doing. And that's also a pitfall. So the idea is, how do you stay the course? How do you stay true to your vision? You're determined enough, but you roll with the punches, because the hard truth about a startup is that whenever you figure out one problem, guess what's waiting for you after that problem? Another problem. And that just keeps going and going, right? So resilience is at the top of the list. But I think something that I've noticed for people with the right kind of, or right balance of resilience, is that they have like a habit of having a curiosity that is insatiable. It's like a burning curiosity. Okay, it's like a hunger for more information. Okay, and like, how do you know that your hunger is great enough? Well, if you're the type of person, or if you find yourself getting really, really into something, right? Some kind of technology or some new way of doing things, and it fascinates you to the point where you will scour the earth for more information, and you will, sacrifice your sleep for it. You will miss a meal for it, right? You know that you have that kind of burning curiosity. Okay. And this type of curiosity is really important, because as a founder, you really have to get to the bottom of things, right? You have to get to the bottom of things and understand it better than most people, right? Otherwise, how are you going to create a superior product? You just have to get good at something. No one starts at the top level, but you have to have that burning curiosity to get there. And another indicator that your curiosity is intense enough is that this curiosity will trump most hardships. So many times when we're exploring something, we're going to hit a roadblock. We may not be able to find the information, or we may become frustrated by running an experiment that didn't work in our favor, or we may even get like ridiculed by our friends and family or on social media, right? And then you'll have, and then this is like a test, right? This is a test. If you fold under that pressure, then guess what? You're not curious enough. You care more about succumbing to your fear than satisfying your curiosity, right? So if your curiosity is so burning, right? Yes, there's the fears there. Yes, it's uncomfortable to be humiliated or to be laughed at for being a contrarian, which just about every single startup founder is, right? If your curiosity can trump that, and congratulations, you have that insatiable curiosity, right? I'm not saying that other emotions don't exist. It's just that it'll trump it, right? And then so that also brings me to my next point, another assessment to see if you have the courage, right? Courage is also part of resilience. And when I say courage, it's like, yeah, okay, well, that is very scary. I do not know how to do that. It could be anything, right? It could be talking to the customer. It could be learning a new technology. It could be anything, any kind of obstacle that stands in your way of creating a successful startup, right? And that fear, that emotional fear, is very real, right? Do you have the courage to say, yes, I'm afraid, but you know what? I'm still going to keep moving forward, right? Like, do you have the courage to say, well, shoot, I need to face myself because there are a lot of things I don't know, right? And only when we put ourselves down can we really actually take in more information, or take in information at a quick enough speed to be able to surf the market and to be able to capture that trend. Because you'll find that that's also one of the habits of an entrepreneur. If we can't face ourselves and we can't put ourselves down, you'll find out that the information accumulation is too slow. You'll never be able to catch up to the speed of the market. Okay, so that's another thing. Like, do we have the courage to face ourselves? And it's not that easy. That's also a habit. Another test of courage is, are we able to break our own inertia? Right. Inertia is a very scary thing because it just creeps up on you. Like, if you do something for one day, you don't really feel inertia. You can do something the next day. But if you've been working at a job for a year, you will start feeling inertia. And you work at a job for 5 or 10 years, that's not a flexible, that's not entrepreneurial. That inertia is so great that for most people, they do not have the courage to face that. Okay, because that would mean to unplug themselves and to do something that they are not used to, and that is a scary thing. Right? That is a scary thing. So courage, I would say, is one of those habits. Again, none of these are. I don't believe any of these are just born born into us. We have to work at all of these, right? And I don't think anybody is like courageous 100% of the time, or anyone's resilient 100% of the time, or anyone's curious 100% of the time, right? But as I said, this self-assessment is not to see if you could be there 100%. If you're there 60, 70%, that is already a huge start, right? Because guess what? The other 30% you gain only through entrepreneurship, right? And so that also brings me to another point. Are you wise enough to understand that, having never been an entrepreneur, right? Are you wise enough to know that, hey, actually the best way to learn about entrepreneurship is to be an entrepreneur? You can't learn it in a consulting company. You cannot learn it at an investment bank. You cannot learn it at a business school, right? There are only a few programs out there that are structured like the Startup Lab, right? You learn by doing, and you get immersed in it. And that's the only way you actually learn to become an entrepreneur, right? So those are some of the points. Let me give you some other points, because this is something that really I think some people are confused about, some people are clear about, but I find there a lot of the most successful entrepreneurs, they come from a technical background, right? And a lot of technical people, my dad included, they're very idealistic, right? They're in it for the love of the technology, right? But an entrepreneur is not just in it for love of technology. They care about money at the same time they don't care about money, meaning that, okay, money is not the most important thing, but they understand money is such an important tool for them to create a superior product, a product that could become number one. Money is a tool. They understand that very clearly. Money is a tool that allows their team to survive and allows their team to have resources to build the most awesome product and to keep delivering that value, that top value, the best value to their users. Money is a tool, right? So the way I would assess that, if you can understand that, and this is an easier one because you either understand it or you don't. And again, if you don't understand it now, maybe one day you may understand it, or maybe you may see things differently, right? So this is not trying to convince anyone. This is just to, hey, you are right now on the fence, right? Or you've had like an itch inside you. Like, I've always wanted to start something. I've always wanted to do this, or, and you feel like the timing is right, but you want to think about rationally, right? You don't want to make any sudden or, impulsive choices. So this checklist that we're going through is your self-assessment. And so on the money element, the way I like to think about it is that I notice that successful entrepreneurs, they realize that money in their hands is going to create a lot more value for society than money in the hands of the people they're working for. And then they quit. Right. Okay, that's it. Right. Just think about that for a second. Do you believe that you can use the funds better than your company? If you think you can, then you should try your hand at entrepreneurship. It's that simple, right? But if you think like, yeah, my company's doing a great job, then that's also awesome. Congratulations, you found your dream job, right? Um, so, but if you just go through like Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, even people in other countries, right? Every single one of them believe that, hey, money in my hands will create a lot more value than the people I could be working for, and that's why they're entrepreneur. Okay, they take their destiny into their own hands, and they believe they have that. It's almost like, I don't know, it goes beyond confidence. It's almost like some kind of faith. And so when I talk about faith, it's just like, hey, I don't know what is, no one knows what the future holds, but I have a belief in myself that if I just keep doing this and I try and I push forward, that somehow it's going to work itself out. Okay, it's having that kind of blind faith in self, and which brings me into our next point for your self-assessment to see if you're ready to be an entrepreneur, or maybe you already had the training before, but you just didn't know it. Okay, and this is how do you develop that self-faith? Again, this is not something that I think you're born with. It's something that is forged over time. And the people that I see who have the most self-faith and they just believe in themselves is that they have the champion muscle memory. What do I mean by that? It means that you became so curious, like these people became so curious with something that you just worked at it until they became an expert in that field, or they won a #1, right? Like champion, a gold medal, or a similar type of designation, right? It doesn't have to be like a badge, but you know that, shoot, wow. In the beginning, I was a novice, but because of my burning curiosity and my courage, my resilience, I kept pushing forward and kept on learning and trying. Not learning theoretically, like theoretical is like part of it, but learning by doing, right? Like by getting the mix, right? And then you look back, wow, I'm sort of like most knowledgeable in this aspect. Or it could be like you could become #1 swimmer, right, in your city. You could become the #1 chess player, right? You could be the best coder in your region, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be something mental, but something physical as well, right? So there's a combination of physical and mental. And the more times that you experience becoming a champion at something, the more faith you have in yourself, right? Because then you sort of see, well, actually, there's a pattern here. It's actually, although it's a different skill, the journey is the same. The feeling is the same. In the beginning, it feels awkward, but for something, I just kept on pushing forward. I faced adversity, but I just kept on going at it, kept on going. I didn't start #1, but I climbed my way up there, right? That is a startup. Right. So if you feel like if you have experienced that becoming a champion at something in more than one facet, that's also or becoming #1 or proficient at something more than one asset aspect of or more than one skill, that's also a very strong indicator that you're ready to take the plunge to do a startup, right? And that also, I think, this is also part of that. It could be put together with the experience of becoming #1 at something, but I would like to sort of take it out. You can use that as a separate assessment. It's very similar, and it's almost like you're competitive almost to a fault. Like you have an obsession to win. You have an obsession to just be great. And it could be like a chip on your shoulder. It could be you have something to prove, right? If you feel like you got something to prove, it doesn't matter if you got to prove to yourself or to somebody else, but you just have that drive. That it's like it's not just a normal drive. It's an obsession. It's an obsession. Okay, then you have that kind of resilience to run a startup. Okay. Another thing I've noticed about successful startup founders when they first start is that they tend to be very strong communicators, meaning that they can explain very complex things in very simple terms so anyone can understand it. Okay, that is such an important skill. Taking something complex and then turning it into something very easy to understand, right? Okay, so strong communicators. And this could, it doesn't matter if you're CEO or CTO or CMO or whatever co-founder role you have. I noticed that this is like a universal trait, right, for those successful founders. Okay. That's pretty self-explanatory, I hope. So not much there to talk about. That's another self-assessment. Again, these are habits, right? Just because like you're challenged in communication, it doesn't mean that you cannot become an effective communicator. How bad do you want it, right? Right. This is a great chance to test your resolve, your resilience. Another thing that I've also noticed that is probably overlooked and not talked about very much in just about any kind of entrepreneur book is physical stamina, like physical stamina, right? Yeah, because when you're competing, if you have an idea that is that matters and that people want you to build, guess what? There'll be many companies, many founders who want to build it. That's how you know it's a real market opportunity, right? That's how you know it's a real market opportunity. And in that case, you're going to be working over hours. You're going to be stressed out. You're going to be challenged, and you have to have physical stamina. That is a hallmark of an entrepreneur, and that's also why it's easier to start up when you're younger. Okay, there's this is another self-assessment, right? It's not a coincidence that the founder of Tencent, Mr. Ma, or Elon Musk, or Bill Gates, or Steve Jobs, or Mark Zuckerberg, or the Google founders, they're all in their 20s. Some of them were 19. That's not a coincidence. Not a coincidence, right? Charles Branson, founder of Virgin, they all started side hustles, or they all started coding. They started like their superpower skill when they're a teenager, right? So by the time they're 20, they're proficient in some things, and they had always tried, right? And then it is a game of stamina, right? And it is also a game of making sure you don't have that many dependencies. So one is like the most important thing is your health and stamina, right? But you'll find out that after age 35, unless you were already an entrepreneur, right? Before, after age 35, the chance of you succeeding at a startup decreases exponentially, right? There's a few reasons for that. I'm just going to go over a couple. Number one, your physical stamina goes down, right? You just can't work as much, right? Number two, you may have golden handcuffs, which means that you have a high-paying job, right? And your opportunity cost is becoming very real now, right? And your high-paying job is paying for perhaps a house mortgage, paying for a significant other, paying for children's schooling costs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So you cannot go back to a startup life where you're making only a fraction of the cost because you have too many dependencies. And as you get older, guess what? Your parents are getting older. They may get sick, and then part of your time and energy has to be, and maybe money even, has to be allocated to them, right? So really the lesson is, if you're watching this video, right, this point on self-assessment is, if you want to be entrepreneur, you should have got started yesterday. But since you can't go back in time, you get started now. That's it. Time is not on your side, right? And that brings, and I have James to thank for this. And this probably brings us to probably the most important point, is that successful founders, they intuitively understand that time is a scarce resource. Time is a scarce resource. Everything else you can make back. Everything else is, yes, you could count like the finiteness of it, but it's, for all purposes, is like those things are actually unlimited. You can always make a bet, but time, if you lose it, it's gone. That's it. It's gone. Right. At least with our technology today, where we are today in today's society, it's gone. So, it's sort of, it's something that you either get it or you don't. Again, it's not like if you don't get it now, you'll never get it your whole life. But if you don't get it now, you're not going to understand right? And it's not the right time for you to start up. But if you understand, yes, time is of the essence, and it actually gets harder and harder as time goes on, as you get older and older. And yes, I should be doing everything in my power to do things more efficiently. Like instead of me having to meet 100 mentors, right? That'll take you years, by the way. It takes anyone years. Even with people who are born with these connections, it takes them a long time to get plugged in, right? And if you're not born with it, it takes you even longer. So are you gonna meet like 100 successful entrepreneurs by yourself, or are you gonna join the Bitcoin Startup Lab and do it in just 3 months? Think about it. Do you want to do it in years, or sometimes you could count in decades, or you could do it in months? Are you going to go and trial and error and figure out how to find a group of customers that are pulling you into the project, right? Ramon was talked about, that was one of the scientific milestones of a startup that can live beyond its infancy, right? Are you going to do it by trial and error, or are you going to learn it in 2 weeks at the Bitcoin Startup Lab? Because people could take years and years to learn the skill if you do it by yourself, right? All right. So right, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I mean, this is why we don't convince people to join the Startup Lab. You know, like if you get it, then awesome, sign up. We'll take a look at your application, and you just might get in, right? And welcome to the family. If you don't get it, we're not going to convince you either. This is one of those things that you have to grow into, and it has to click for yourself, right? So that's the, you know, again, I mean, I think I mentioned around 10 points. What was it? Resilience, right? Which is a combination of, you know, and guys, if you're joining this video late, you know, you can play it back. We're going to release it to the public. And the other thing is, if you join late, like do a self-assessment quickly, right? So resilience is a combination of determination and mental flexibility, right? In the right balance, right? Because you don't want to be so stubborn that you can't grow, but you don't want to be like so flexible that you're changing your idea every single day. Okay, so resilience is the first one, but fundamentally, like one of the conditions that must exist for resilience is that you have to have an insatiable curiosity, right? The curiosity where sometimes you lose sleep over it, sometimes you miss a meal over it. Is you're so curious that you don't care about people laughing at you. You just want to figure this out. You're just so hungry to understand this thing, right? That like a curiosity at that level, okay? And you have to have courage, right? You have to have courage to face yourself. You have to have courage. It's like when I say courage, it's like you have to be able to overcome your emotions. There's so many emotions that will challenge you, right? Humiliation is one of the big ones. Like fear of failing in front of your friends and family, right? Or fear of, what if I don't reach that goal? How am I going to feel about myself? Fear of like so many different things, like, you know, hiring people, talking to customers, talking to investors, XYZ, like courage, right? The ability to overcome your fears so you could keep moving forward, courage. The next one is, you know, you don't care about money, but you care about money, meaning that you're not doing this just for money. You're doing it because you want to create something awesome for society, something that's so valuable, right? But you understand money is a tool that will get you there, right? It's a very efficient tool that could get you there, right? And the indicator for that, the self-test for that is, how do you know that you understand this already? Well, ask yourself, if someone gives you $1 million, right? Do you think your company will create more value with that $1 million? Or do you think you can use that money and create more value than them? If you believe you could create more value than the company you're working for, guess what? You should go on the journey of entrepreneurship. It's that simple, right? And you have to have like this number one muscle memory, meaning that if you have gone through a gauntlet, push yourself, face adversity, overcome it, and then claw your way up to become proficient in something, a champion or number one in something, that muscle memory will carry you into entrepreneurship. And it's best if you had it at least twice, then it's much easier to replicate in your project, right? And that goes that means that if you have number one muscle memory, that means you have a certain type of self-confidence and faith in yourself, right? And there is a prerequisite for that. I notice that people who are able to do that, they also have this like it's like a competitive obsession, or they have a chip on their shoulder, or they got something to prove. Okay, they got something to prove, and that's why they have some kind of internal drive that cause them to want to go through that, because it is painful at times, right? Sometimes like it's exhilarating, but sometimes it's painful, right? But you know, at the painful times, they have that drive to keep pushing and clawing their way to the top. Okay. And they're strong communicators, right? Strong communicators, meaning that successful founders have the ability to say something very complex and making it very simple, right? So even a layman can understand it, right? And that's universal for all roles for co-founders, okay? And then there's a point of physical stamina, right? If you do a idea that people find valuable, right, that are pulling you into, guess what? There's going to be more than one team, more than one startup competing for that, and that's going to cause you to work extra hours, right? That's going to give you stress. That's going to have a burden on your body, on your health, right? So entrepreneurs, they tend to be in good health, and they have above average physical stamina, right? But I noticed that people are curious and resilient. Their immune systems and their stamina are much better than normal people as well. So you know, these things they build on each other. They build on each other, right? So, and the last one is the aspect of time, to understand that time is the scarce resource, and a successful entrepreneur will always find ways to save themselves times. How can I even have a higher quality, but I use less money and time to achieve it, and energy to achieve it, right? Am I going to try to build like a strong network myself, and it may take a decade, or am I going to supercharge it in 3 months through a startup lab? Am I going to try to learn the scientific methods of startup myself? And the only way you can learn it is if you do multiple startups. You have to have a reference point, a failure, a success, and a third point in order for you to start seeing the patterns, right? And cross-reference that against researching a bunch of different startup founders, reading a bunch of books. You cross-reference that. That takes years and years and years, if not a decade, right? But then you can also learn it in just a few months from people who have already been through the gauntlet. Learn by doing from people who have done it before, right? So is that understanding of time? Do you understand how scarce a resource time is? And do you understand that the best time to get started for a startup, if you're past 20, is yesterday? So today is the best day because we cannot go back in time, right? So there you have it. Get started early. Don't wait until you have a bunch of dependencies. Don't wait until you have golden handcuffs. Don't wait until you have responsibilities that you cannot walk away from, right? Get started now. And at the same time, if you found out, you know, wow, like over half of these I don't have yet, no problem. Start working at it. Now you know the highly effective habits of successful entrepreneurs. You can start practicing them today. And at the same time, if after you went through his checklist and you feel like, oh wow, I think I have most of those, like at least 70%, come join us. We'll help you close the gap on the last 30%. And to all of you out there, I'd like to extend an open invitation because we are on a quest. It's a never-ending quest to find more truths, or these the science of successful founders. I've try to poke holes and try to find the exception of the rules to what I've shared with you. So far, I haven't been able to do that. But that's not to say that there are no exceptions to the rule. So, if you feel that, hey, we might have missed something, or you might have like a interesting new take on something, or maybe you just want us to expand and share with you more what we mean on one of the points, please feel free to reach out to us. We welcome you. And the way we move forward as a society, the way we move forward on Web3 and Bitcoin is cross-pollination of ideas. That is one of the cornerstones of innovation. So please reach out, and we'd be happy to hear what you have to say. Thank you. Thank you for listening.